What's going on, everybody? KSA Chris here, Fallbrook Village Talk, another episode. Pretty excited. We were hoping to put this one on a little bit earlier, but some things came up, but at least we got to get Morgan on. I'm excited. If you all don't know, Morgan owns Defense Tactics and Firearms. He's really focused on CCW, which is your concealed carry permit, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but also Morgan's right there, been in Fallbrook, Bonsall area for quite a while, helps and services people out in our area and I've known him for quite a bit. And he's one of the few people I know, unlike myself, or like myself, who actually will walk around with a cowboy hat and rock it really well. And don't care if people like it or don't. I personally am a fan of cowboy hats, so I love it when I see another man walk around with one on too, in the state of California. So I'm a fan. So what's going on, Morgan?
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for providing the service for the community. What a great way to get the message out, let the community learn about local businesses and what's going on. I can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah, man. Well, I came up with this idea a while ago and we started to do it, but unfortunately we just didn't have the technology or have enough knowledge on how to do it. And through the 3 years that I put this off, I've learned a lot and I started doing a lot of stuff on YouTube and I'm like, okay, we could do this. And it's not just about businesses, but I think overall what's cool is I like bringing in the interaction of the businesses are part of Fallbrook. Okay, or I want to say the friendly village overall, so because that's more than Fallbrook, it expands past Fallbrook, but also just the people's stories. I'm bringing on people that aren't business owners as well because it's just stories. The village, I hate jumping online and I hate jumping on Friends of Fallbrook or Real Friends of Fallbrook, and all I hear is it's not all I hear, but I hear people complaining about, oh, this is happening, this sucks, that sucks. And I feel like this is a way for us to like let people know that we are still like the town, we're still here. This is what makes up the town. It's the people. There's a lot of good people here. There's a lot of great, amazing stories. The people that I meet in my business specifically, people have been in town for 30, 40, 50, 60 years and listening to what Fallbrook used to be like, what Bonsall used to be like. And I just want to tell those stories. And I think a big portion of those stories is also the business owners. Business owners of the past, business owners of the present, people that are starting to build businesses, because that's what kind of brings people to the community. It creates money for the community. A lot of business owners are heavily involved in the community. So I just thought it would be fun. And, I know you've been really, really involved in the community for a long time. I mean, as long as we've known each other, I forgot to put that up. There it is. As long as we've known each other, and it's been years, man, you're always out at a lot of events. You're always talking to people. You're always engaged. You always care. So you were one of the people I definitely wanted to get on when we stood this thing up. So I appreciate having you on a lot. I really do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, my wife and my family and us, we've been so blessed to find Fallbrook. Like so many people that aren't from the area, we just stumbled across it. I spent 11 years in the Marine Corps, and as we moved, we're originally both from Tucson, Arizona. So we brought a little bit of that cowboy culture out here with us.
Right.
And, we were living in Oceanside and it just didn't feel like home. And then we stumbled across Fallbrook and we're like, my God, this feels so much like home. The small
Right.
community, just the push for a community-based approach to everything. And we immediately fell in love. And at the first opportunity, we rented a house out here, and then God blessed us again, and we had the opportunity to purchase some property out here in Fallbrook. So yeah, we are extremely excited to be involved and be fully integrated into the community.
It's interesting how that happens. I mean, I found Fallbrook. I started going through Fallbrook in the mid 90s because I was in the Marine Corps and I retired. So I did a lot of years too. I love my Marines. I think I think when we first met, that's what we kind of like connected on. And I started coming through here and I was like, man, one day when I can afford it, I'm buying a house in Fallbrook. And I came back from Afghanistan. I think it was 2010. And I kind of got thrusted these orders. I was actually out in 29 Palms, stationed at 29 Palms, and 2 weeks before First Marines deployed, I get a phone call and asked if I wanted to take a billet with them in Afghanistan. So I literally just packed up what I needed for the deployment, left. I came back and I was now part of First Marines. So I had nowhere to live. I didn't have any time to find a place to live. And, I just got, again, blessed. My first house was off of Porter Way. Bought our first house in Fallbrook off Porter Way. And it was one of those things when I was looking to retire. I always wanted to, I said, when I retire, I'm moving back to the South. I'm going to move back to the South. That's where I'm going to be. And Kim was not leaving. she wasn't going to leave. And so it's like, okay, so if I have my choice between the South and California, and the South isn't an option, because me and Kim had talked about it, and we had decided, me and Kim had decided we're staying in Southern California. Fallbrook is just, it makes me feel like I'm home. I feel like I'm home. So yeah, it was definitely one of those things. And so it looks like Rick. Hey Rick, thank you. So he says, thank you both for your service. Yeah, absolutely, Rick. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for posting that up. We appreciate it. And it looks like we got another post there. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe it says, thanks, Jillian. That was from Nicholas L. Ames. So not sure, but thanks, Nick. I'm assuming there was a reason why I posted it up is for somebody. So, Morgan, let's talk a little bit. We kind of heard your story of how you ended up in Fallbrook. So how many years has it been now?
I think we're somewhere around 4 or 5 years now here in Fallbrook.
Right on, man. 4 or 5 years. Okay, cool. And just kind of cooking along. And I know you actually built a business. You, in my opinion, kind of like, I'm a little bit jealous because leaving the Corps, you went from being a Marine to really doing something that's still along those same lines, but helping the average American who may not know how to. Because let's be honest, we're in California, so a lot of people in California either fear guns, they hate guns, or they don't understand guns. Like they just can't wrap their head around it, right? And being able to take the average American citizen who has the right to bear arms and actually give them education and training how to properly, safely, and effectively use a weapon, whether it's for sport, whether it's for enjoyment, whether it's for like for me, I personally like to eat. I hate going to Albertsons, and I have friends, again, California, I have friends that can't wrap their head around this, that I think it's disgusting to go to Albertsons and buy meat. I personally am not a fan. I do it on occasion, but I would rather go out and I hunt my own food. I respect the food. It's something I've been doing since I was a kid, and that's how I feed my family. But that's just me. So I just think it's really cool that you made that transition. But like, what was that process? Like, what you were just sitting there one day and you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to get into this.
So I was still active duty in the Marines. So this was going on about 5 years ago, and I personally was seeking out classes on the legal aspects of armed self-defense. Arizona is a constitutional carry state, so you actually don't need a permit to open or conceal carry in Arizona. So I've been carrying for many years, and I said, you know what, I really need to understand laws. And I was disappointed in the quality of the services that were out there. I was seeing a lot of my Marines being arrested or NJP'd for very small firearms related crimes that had huge impacts on the rest of their lives. I said, you know what? I'm going to start a firearms company that focuses on the legal aspects of armed self defense. And that's really what we do. Our motto is learn the laws, win the fight. Myself, my other instructors, we're actually use of force instructors for both armed citizens and law enforcement. I am a legal consultant and expert witness for self defense and firearm related cases. And we actually have another Fallbrookian that's part of our team. His name's John Dillon. He's a firearms attorney that specializes in firearms law
Oh,
uh,
wow.
and self defense. He's based out of Carlsbad. He founded the firearms division of his law firm. So that is really what we focus on is the legal aspects. And of course the shooting's there. The skill part has to be there, but we want to really help people understand what are all the firearms laws? How do you not only avoid the fight and win the fight, but how do you win the legal aftermath that often encompasses those situations?
I would imagine there's a lot of myths as well. I could give you a couple that I've heard. And, I own firearms, and there's myths. I would imagine that there's a lot of myths out there that you deal with too, and just trying to get rid of those myths so people aren't confused on what is legal or not legal.
Yeah, we oh Chris, I still got you.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, no, absolutely. It's a lot. And I'm going to say something surprising. California actually has very friendly self defense laws. What they don't have is friendly district attorneys, prosecutors, or, activist judges.
Hmm.
So, and I'll give you a couple examples. There's two types of states. There's stand your ground states and duty to retreat states. Stand your ground meaning you're not. It doesn't say you're allowed to just shoot, but what essentially it says is that if you're presented with a threat, that you have no requirement to attempt to retreat. even if you can do it safely. And of course, we always gear our students towards avoidance. Whereas a duty to retreat says you must legally attempt to retreat before using any force. Do you
Really?
think California is a stand your ground or a duty to retreat state?
Huh. That's interesting. See, I didn't know that.
Which
And
one, do you, Chris? Do you think California is a stand your ground or a duty to retreat state?
I would imagine because it's California. So this is almost like whenever I would do my, whenever I would have to do like my MCIs or my annual training, I would always say, pick the weakest decision. And that's probably the right answer. It's like, okay, so your room was just ambushed. Do you crawl up into a ball and cry and hide under the bed, or do you fight them? And it's like, well, I think I should crawl up in a ball. Oh, correct. So I'm going to have to say that, it's one of those where I have to run away before I'm allowed to actually shoot somebody in California.
So it's actually the opposite. It's a stand your ground state. But
Really?
You won't find that in a penal code. You'll find that in the actual jury instructions where it clearly states that for you. So what we do in our process is we don't want you to just take our word for it. We actually give you the resources and information. We look at the penal codes, we look at the jury instructions, and then we go back and examine case law. So that way our students can make an educated decision, because there's times when you are 100% within the law, but if that responding officer thinks you're breaking a crime, guess what you're doing at that time? You're committing a crime.
Right.
And we want you to help educate you so you can make that decision to not only avoid being arrested and avoid the fight, but really survive that legal aftermath.
Interesting. Wow. So this is the thing. I think I even told you I want to take one of your courses, just because I think, in my opinion. Okay, so let me back up. I think a lot of people, especially former military, I being one of them, we think because we got a lot of time on weapons, we're experts or we know something, so we feel pretty comfortable and confident. I gotta admit, I've been retired now for a few years, and yeah, I could still shoot. I could shoot. I'm good. I'm still really good, right? But I just feel very rusty and very cloudy on what I can and can't do, and definitely the legality. I mean, here it is, we're talking, and I'm like, man, I'm ignorant of that. That can't be good. And in fact, I think, when you have that type of ignorance, it's dangerous. So, if somebody wants to, like myself, if you hit me up and I'm like, hey, I think there should be some maintenance at a minimum for all. So if we were talking about weapons and what we should or should not be doing in the state of California, in my opinion, instead of trying to deal with ammo, guns, what's right, what's wrong, all that jazz, how about just mandatory? I would be good with a mandatory maintenance course where it's like, once a year I got to show up for a few hours and learn about the laws, learn about weapons handling. I'd be good with that. Like, I'm a fan of that. I think a better educated gun owner is a good gun owner. I'm a fan. So, I mean, so if I was looking for that type of education, what would I do?
Yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there. I'd say overall that's the conundrum within really the firearms training community. We recognize as trainers that there has to be some sort of quality of training, but then you're up against, well, does requiring a course every year now inhibit maybe a low income family? Because arguably that single mom that lives in that high crime neighborhood needs access to those tools more than you or I do.
That's true.
But what we see is a lot of times that some of these policies are so cost prohibitive for people in that scenario that they're forced to look at possibly illegal means to defending themselves and their families. So
Wow.
Another thing and to be clear, in terms of a concealed carry permit, that is the requirement in California. You have to take an initial 8-hour course, and then every 2 years you take a renewal 4-hour class.
Right. So, okay, I love what you just said, because again, I like having conversations like this. I try to come in really ignorant to certain stuff like this, because it helps me want to ask more questions, and I just like learning stuff. And here it is. I'm thinking I'm a pretty smart guy. Well, if you do this, but then I would have basically been potentially hurting somebody else and their right to actually have a weapon. Right. Because I would be good with signing on to a policy that may make sense on its face, but really limits the opportunity and availability to other people that should not be limited. So yeah, that's pretty powerful. Hey, real quick, Morgan, we got quite a few people popping up here, so I want to go ahead and just say hi to them. So first off, Jillian, thank you so much for sharing the site. She's been sharing it.
Thank
And
you.
it looks like Nicholas Ames, he says, laugh out loud, 8010 series. So I don't know if you remember the 8010
Oh,
series, MCIs. Yeah. And then Rick jumped on here. He says, Rick had a question. Let me pull it up. He says, Morgan, do you have an office front to ask more questions? Yeah. So this is Rick, what we're going to do before we get off. So keep watching. I'm going to make sure that Morgan tells everybody where you can find him and how you can get in touch with him. Because here's the thing, and Rick, maybe hit me up, Bud, because if you're going to take a class or something, maybe I'll go do it with you. I've been wanting to do it for a while. And then we got Robin jumped on there. She says, "Hi, Morgan." Hi, Robin. I love her. She's so awesome, man.
he's amazing.
I had her on the other day, Social Flower. I love her work. It's like
Yeah,
it's art. It's
yeah,
art. It's
yeah.
really, really good stuff. So let's keep digging into this. So now we talked about overall training. So tell me, like across the board, not only do you talk about legal and going deep into that, but what other type of physical training? I mean, do you do range training, tactical training? What kind of stuff do you do?
Yeah, so we do everything from hunter education, never touched a gun, all the way up to training law enforcement. We do emphasize the legal aspects, which often carries it over to the handgun platforms, both inside the home defense and then concealed carry or outside the home defense as well. But we have an amazing instructor staff here, a very diverse team. So we've done private lessons for kids. We actually started or helped start the 4-H rifle project here in
Oh,
Fallbrook.
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's going on right now. We do ladies only classes where it's just a more comfortable environment for ladies to come together. We have the option where we provide firearms and ammunition, thanks to our good friends over at BB's Arms and Munitions.
Love
And
those guys.
if you're bringing your own firearms as well, so we can really cater to the training to whatever you're looking for.
That's awesome. And then outside of that, you also do CCW stuff. So for everybody, CCW is an acronym. What does CCW stand for?
Concealed carry weapons permit is what it is.
Okay, cool. Now I remember a long time ago, I was told in order to get a concealed carry in San Diego County, you literally had to know somebody because it just wasn't going to happen. So
Yeah.
is that true still?
It has completely changed. So I would say anything you thought you knew about CCWs in San Diego, completely forget it. The sheriff has made an almost 180 policy change, and that's because of a group known as San Diego County Gun Owners. They've put so much pressure on him, directed by Michael Schwartz, that they've actually got him to almost completely flip his policy.
So what's the process? Like, so it sounds like there's one individual that got to decide the fate of individuals that wanted a CCW.
Yeah, so here in California, California is a may issue state, meaning that you're not guaranteed to get your permit. That issuing agency is within the county. You can only apply in the county you reside, but the permit itself is good for the entire state. So that's where that essentially one person being the make or break. Orange County, extremely open to getting permits. Riverside County, extremely open. San Diego County historically wasn't, but the sheriff has shifted his policy since the last election.
Okay, so when you talk about a concealed carry, what exactly does that mean? And because I want to make sure that it comes out of your mouth because I think um, some again California, and I hate saying it's California, but whenever I visit Arizona, I'd never see any of these. You know, it's like it's not even a debate. It's not even a conversation. But California, because a lot of people just don't own guns, don't believe in guns, or understand guns. And I'm going to stop saying the word guns. I'm going to say weapons overall. So a concealed carry weapons permit. When we talk about that specifically, what exactly does that mean? Does it mean you can hide a gun, which is what I've heard? Well, it means you can hide a gun. So what does it mean?
That means you can legally carry a gun in the public, but it cannot be seen. So you have to carry it underneath a jacket, underneath your clothing. It must be concealed, but you can legally carry it in the public. And of course, there's places where you can't carry it, such as schools or federal buildings, things of that nature. But you can, at that point, you can legally possess a firearm and keep a firearm on you in the public.
Okay, for those that may not understand, still in the conversation, why would somebody want to have a CCW?
Because you need to shoot somebody.
There it is.
There's really there's it's a tool of self preservation is what it is. And there's times and there's situations where ending the threat, that doesn't mean you need to kill somebody. It means you need to stop a threat. And it's another tool in on your Batman belt in order to stop that threat.
Right on. I love how you put that because I think a lot of individuals, I've heard it and I've heard it and I've heard it, and I have a lot of like hardcore anti gun friends, and they just can't wrap their head around why I have weapons. And I says, here's the thing, and I personally would like to get my CCW, and it has nothing to do with me going out of my way to try to pick a fight, start a fight, or find a fight. It has everything to do with I am a father of two wonderful children. I am the husband to a wonderful wife. I am a business owner to many employees. I am the son of two amazing parents. I am the grandson of some amazing grandparents. I am loved, and I am a veteran that has survived Afghanistan and Iraq, and I would like to continue to stay that way. And if something is presented to me, ideally, it never happens. Ideally, I never get put into a situation for my entire life to where I would ever have to use uh, lethal force, or even just to pull it out and use it in any form of protection. However, I would like to have something available to me. So if put into the situation or put into a scenario where I had to protect myself, I have the ability.
Right.
I have the ability, and I'm well trained to do that. So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and for most of us, that's what it comes down to. Carrying a firearm or having a firearm for even home defense, it's not about seeking out encounters. In fact, your level of avoidance increases at that point because you now know that you are going to be held to a higher standard. And the funny thing is that those that may choose not to carry a firearm, I don't believe it. When push comes to shove and there's a threat, the first thing they do is they call other armed people to protect them. I'm just saying, or I think what we're both saying is we want to be able to protect ourselves with that equal means.
Right on,
San
absolutely.
Diego, if we look at permits in San Diego County, there's something like 2,500 active permits right now out of a population of over what, like 3 million.
Hmm.
So when you look percentage rise, you're talking about a point like 0.0006% of the entire population has the same means as a bad guy to protect themselves.
Well,
And it's just, what we're asking is, hey, we want a level playing field. And luckily, the sheriff has shifted his policy to give us that opportunity if we want it.
that's awesome. We got a question here, Morgan. It says, do you have to be a resident of California to obtain a CCW in California? And that was from Rick.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. You do so. California does not accept any other state's permit. You have to be a California resident, or if you're military on orders, that includes both the service member and the spouse. You can be issued a California CCW.
Cool. Now, if you get a California CCW, can that extend to other states?
Yeah, so that's what we call reciprocity. There's approximately 23 other states that will accept the California permit. That's why a lot of individuals will get what's known as a non-resident permit. So they'll get a permit from like Arizona, Utah, or Florida that allows them to carry in more states throughout the United States. And those are services we offer as well.
Oh, awesome. So if somebody came to you, they can get a CCW for California, but they can also look to get CCW in other states. So as they're traveling, transitioning. Now, do the rules and laws? I'm assuming they would change state to state. So if they wanted to get that information, they could always come through you and get that, right?
Yeah, that's a great observation. And that's why when we're talking in the class, we give you the different things you really need to look for. Because even here in California, from county to county, or even cities or municipalities may have different rules or regulations. For example, in San Francisco, it's actually against the law to carry hollow point ammunition. So if you were going to enter that city and you had that sort of ammunition, you would have to change that prior to being compliant. So we definitely discuss those things that you need to look for and those questions you need to ask as you travel outside of California.
That's awesome, man. Look, we started pretty late, and I feel like we could keep going for like another 20 or 30 minutes. So this is what I'm thinking I would like to do. First off, I want you to tell everybody, to include myself, I'm going to take notes while we're talking. I'm going to schedule a class. And actually, it looks like my wife, Kim, put on here too. She wants to come with me. So we're going to attend a class. But on top of that, I would like to maybe do something on site. I'd like to actually come out to where you are, see your building, and actually do something. Because to me, I think it's very important um, to talk about certain things that may be uncomfortable for some people. And when you talk about health safety, I think sometimes decisions are made and votes are cast based off of ignorance in a lot of ways as well. I just, this is a topic for me that I would like to put more attention on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the ignorance is on both sides of the aisles. You have people that take polar opposite positions and they can't rationally come to a middle ground to see or even acknowledge the positives of the other side's argument. So, everything we do here, it is data driven, it is reality based, and it's evidence based. So, for example, we tell our students, we're not here to sell you sexy. I'm not here to teach you to be an infantry marine because the application overseas is not the same here. And that's how we develop both our classroom courses as well as our range courses, is based off of the reality and the evidence that we have found.
Cool. And I know you also do a range course where if it's like uh, which I think is fantastic, where if it's like a group, instead of going out and you guys do trust falls with each other at some summer camp, you can actually go out on the range and shoot together, get training together, and actually build some camaraderie that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've actually done it for the Chamber of Commerce, for a number of other small businesses, bachelor parties. It's essentially we can cater whatever you would like. But yeah, it's essentially like a team building exercise where you come out, and you get to shoot for the day.
That's awesome. So we got a couple more questions. Once we answer those questions, I would like to put out there all of your info so people can get a hold of you and find out about classes, etc., and training, and the CCW, which is what. So I submitted for my CCW. Is my wife in here? How many years ago was that? It's a long time ago. I was still in the Marine Corps, so it was a long time ago, and it was just like not even real. It wasn't even an option. I'm like, okay, so I'm a good American citizen, never been in trouble. I've been a very safe gun owner for a very long time. I'm still active duty in the Marine Corps, and I can't. I'm not allowed to. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So I personally would like to come and take that class. So let me ask these questions real quick, and then we'll set that up. Rick came back with another one. Says, I currently have my CCW in Washington. My fiance lives here in Fallbrook, and I spend half of my time between Seattle and Fallbrook. So I assume I can never get my CCW here. Just clarifying.
So residency is often defined by where you pay taxes and where you can potentially vote. Now, you can be a dual resident. For example, I maintain a residency in Arizona. So the main thing the sheriff's going to look for is your name tied to some sort of utility bills with that property? And then also, do you have a California's driver's license as well, or some sort of California identification? So
Right
those are
on.
be the two main determining factors for residency in terms of your California permit.
So Rick, it sounds like that would be your path, and I would highly recommend if you have more questions, because we're going to be getting off of here pretty soon. Reach out and talk to Morgan and ask him. We got one last one, and I think this is a really important one. It says, that's awesome info. Info on classes. So they would like to get info on classes. So let's talk about how can people get a hold of you? How can they reach out to you to get info on classes, weapons handling, tactical training, legal aspects, CCW. How can people get a hold of you, Morgan?
Yeah, so if you go on our website, that's where you can find the vast majority of the information. It's defensive tactics and firearms.com. First website, first business, so you live and you learn. We wanted to make it short for everyone. So
Right.
that's defensive tactics and firearms.com. You can also give us a call. Our phone number is 760-451-6694. And then actually every month we do a free seminar on the CCW application process. So if that's something you're looking for, it's always on a Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Here in our office in Fallbrook. We're located off of Alvarado, right next to the sheriff's substation.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, it's a free seminar, and what we do is we actually walk you through that application process, and we help you write your good cause statement, which is the most important part. Our next one's February 7th, but the remaining dates are on the website as well.
Cool. So that gives you information, folks. Hey, you know what? If I can't express it enough. If you are a firearms owner and it's been a while since you've been on the range or been a while since you've taken any classes, you probably should call Morgan up. I'm going to do it. I'm doing the same thing. I'd like to believe I am pretty awesome. But things change. And honestly, I think it might be something that I just start putting in my toolkit every year, if not every other year, just so I can get good maintenance, so I can be a good, responsible gun owner. But that's just what I'm planning on doing. And Morgan, outside of that, you're a local Fallbrookian. You're a hometown hero as well. Veteran, Marine Corps veteran. I'm a huge fan of yours, and thank you so much for jumping on today.
Chris, thanks for having me on. And again, thank you so much for what you do and what you give back to the community.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So hold on 1 second. I'm going to log off. I'll talk to you real quick offline. And for everybody out in Fallbrook, appreciate it. We'll see y'all later. Have a good one.